Okay, so welcome back. This is the second part of the video for proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Now we're going to be discussing the next technique, which is contract relax. So my statement here to remember this technique is essentially the same as contract, hold, relax. Basically, it's contract and hold, relax and lengthen for HR technique. But for contract relax, it's contract and move, relax and lengthen. Essentially, it's the same thing. But instead of performing an isometric contraction, you're performing an isotonic contraction, which involves a change in muscle length. So let's use an example. Elbow flexion contraction. If there is elbow flexion contraction, the tight muscle would be the elbow flexors, which is the biceps brachii, and the limited range of motion would be in the elbow extension. How do we perform contract relax on this? So first, we contract the tight muscle. Since it's elbow flexion contractures, biceps brachii would be tight, contract the biceps brachii, perform elbow flexion. However, as the patient performs elbow flexion, you provide resistance, pushing them into extension as they try to flex their elbow. However, instead of holding a position where you both are just still, you allow the patient to push further into their available range of motion for elbow flexion. You do this for 6 seconds. After 6 seconds, you then ask the patient, ma'am, please relax your muscle. And then you stretch the elbow flexors by performing elbow extension. You do not, during a stretch, you do not ask the patient to perform the movement on themselves. You are actually doing it. The PT is the one that should be performing the stretch, not the patient. Okay? So they should be relaxed during the stretch. So you stretch the elbow and for 15 to 30 seconds, and then you repeat. So yeah, it's very similar to hold relax. It's just in hold relax you hold the muscle, and contract relax you allow the muscle to perform a movement. So how does autogenic inhibition come into play? So in elbow flexion contracture, you perform CR technique. The agonist would be the biceps brachii. The antagonist would be the triceps. When you ask the patient to contract the biceps brachii, you are increasing the tension within the biceps. And then, therefore, the GTO would sense this increase in tension and would relax the biceps brachii. So after you ask the patient to relax and then you lengthen this, aka you stretch the muscle, this would allow for an increase in elbow extension range of motion. So again, we're simply just targeting the tight muscle here. Hopefully you understood that. There is another, you could try the examples for applied the CR technique to hip extension and shoulder extension if you can. Hopefully you understand. So let's move to another one. Let's move to agonist contractor technique. So this one is a bit more complicated because it does not apply autogenic, but it applies reciprocal. But let's just think of it. Let's just go through it slowly. So the statement I used to remember AC technique is to lengthen, relax, perform. So let's say you have had ankle plantar flexion contracture, meaning the gastrocs here, the gastrocs is tight. There is limited dorsiflexion of the ankle. In agonist contract technique, you do not hold the position, you do not contract a position. You start with a stretch. You first stretch the gastrocs. How do you stretch the gastrocs? Since you have to remember what are the lengthened and shortened positions. If the gastrocs is tight, you can stretch it by lengthening it, meaning you perform dorsiflexion. If I were this PT, you would push the ankle towards dorsiflexion, moving towards the torso here. But actually, this is not the recommended position for AC technique for ankle plantar flexion. You should be in supine, but I just don't have another picture. Just pretend that you're in supine. I know it's very hard to pretend, but just bear with me. But yes, you stretch the gastrocs first. Push it into dorsiflexion. Do not allow the patient to perform the movement, okay? You're the one moving the muscle. Hold that position for 15 to 30 seconds, and then after that, you ask the patient, okay, ma'am, please relax your muscle. Oh, please relax. And then you ask them, please try and plantar flex your ankle or move your toes towards the floor as much as you can. And then you have them try that for 6 seconds until the point where they can. So when you have that new range, you just repeat. So how does reciprocal inhibition come into play here? So when you first stretch the muscle, meaning you're performing ankle dorsiflexion on the patient, the active muscle would be the tibialis anterior or dorsiflexor here, while the antagonist would be the gastrocs. So the gastrocs would be relaxed, right? Because lengthen yung lengthen is the gastrocs, shorten is the tibialis anterior. So afterwards, when you ask the patient to perform plantar flexion, the gastrocs would be a little more relaxed due to reciprocal inhibition. Gets? Hopefully you get it. We have some other two examples here so you can apply the concept. Hopefully you understood it. Now we go to the very last one, which is a combination of both. HRAC technique, called relax agonist contract technique. Okay, I know it's a little bit much, but let us look at the statement I have put here. Contract and hold. Relax. Lengthen. Relax. Perform. Okay, so let us use the example of the um, ankle plantar flexion again. So, your gastrocs are tight. How do you perform HRAC technique on it? So first, you perform HR technique. Ask the patient to try and plantar flex their ankle, and then you resist towards that movement. Hold that movement for 6 seconds. After that, you ask the patient, okay, ma'am, relax the muscle. Relax your foot. And then you stretch the gastrocs. Lengthen. Stretch it for 15 to 30 seconds. Afterwards, you relax it. Ask the patient to relax again. And then you ask them, okay, ma'am, can you please perform plantar flexion again? I'm using scientific terms, but you shouldn't do that when you're performing on the patient. Try to use layman terms as much as you can. But I'm just using it so you could understand it better. So it is just a combination of contract relax. Hold relax and agonist contract. I apologize. There is a mistake here. So contract for 6 seconds should be before stretching, and it uses autogenic and reciprocal. Okay. So how does reciprocal and autogenic come into play here? When you ask the patient to do plantar flexion, that involves the active movement of the gastrocs while the relaxation of the tibialis anterior. Meaning, there is autogenic inhibition occurring. Since the gastroc is experiencing an increase in tension, it would relax because the GTO sensed the increase in tension. Afterwards, when you're stretching the gastrocs, that would now involve reciprocal inhibition. The tibialis anterior would be active, while the gastrocnemius would be relaxed and lengthened. So agonist for dorsiflexion, antagonist. Then, so when you ask the patients to perform it, they would have a higher chance of being able to perform an increase in plantar flexion since you have utilized both the muscle spindle and the Golgi tendon organ to relax the muscle. Okay, so let us summarize everything. This is not the summary. Oh dear, how do I remove this? How do I remove this, please? Oh no, I didn't mean that. Oh wait, I can erase it. Okay, sorry. Okay, so okay, we have 3 techniques in the PNF. HR. Wow, I'm great at this. AR, AC, HR, and CR are essentially similar to one another. Only difference is they're both ISO, but HR is metric, CR is tonic. Okay, metric means holding a position, tonic means change in muscle length. AC is different from the two. It is the different child. It utilizes not autogenic, sorry. No, erase that from your memory. It utilizes reciprocal inhibition, and it allows the voluntary movement of the muscle by the patient. Okay, so again, these two are essentially the same. It's just different in how you perform it, and they utilize autogenic inhibition, while AC utilizes reciprocal inhibition. Okay, so when you get the case, what you first need to do is check which muscle is tight and figure out what is the lengthened and shortened position of that muscle. After you figure out which muscle is tight, you decide which one would be most appropriate. Usually, HR and CR are they're good if you just use them. But if the patient experiences pain in performing, let's say, the contract relax or the hold relax, you can do agonist contract. However, if the patient experiences pain in here too, I would recommend not performing that intervention for now because pain is not good. It might disrupt the healing process of the patient. So, after you've decided which type of PNF you want to administer to the patient, just use clear verbal instructions and the patient would be happy. Of course, it would hurt because it's stretching. It's not supposed to feel good, but it's not also supposed to feel like painful, but it's supposed to stretch. You're not supposed to have a really great time, but you're supposed to feel that stretch. And understanding the physiologic impacts of PNF stretching would help us explain to our patient and understand more how these processes all work together. So an important thing that we also need to add is we need to remember the actions of the muscles. It's important because we have to determine the agonist and antagonist and which one is tight, which one is not tight. We have to remember the positions, of course. Which position can we gain access to our patient as gain access to the region of the body of the patient that we need to stretch, and that would not cause pain on our part because body mechanics is also important. And we also need to simply talk with the patient because they also need to understand. Even if you understand it medically and scientifically, the patient also needs to understand it in layman's terms. You must explain to them properly so that they really understand the rationale and the importance of this program so they would adhere to it much better. So, I think this is it for PNF. The proprietor what now? Hopefully, it's more understandable at this point. And yeah, it's a really fun technique once you get the hang of it. It's only difficult because it can be confusing with all of the muscles involved. But hopefully, you understood it after this video. Thank you.